Yeah, definitely. It's not a party without people.
I don't know. It was really weird. Not kick. Yeah. So, Jen, the Chinese people having that pizza, please.
What did he do?
I want to see how he dishes up that pizza. You think it's cream cheese? It's not cream cheese. It's solid.
Okay. No, that's fine. Is there unmute? Unmute. There you go. Let's try just for the most. This will be the most egregious piece of brand advertising ever. Oh, except the pillar's in the way. Yeah, how's that? Except for that pillar, that's amazing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Ooh, nice! I love these. 1 2 1 1 1 1 2. Yes, on.
The volume.
Player 2. This is player 2. Player 2. Oh, okay. Hello.
Testing 1 2. Hi everyone. Just testing. Literally just testing the mic. Please have a drink and oh, that's a bit much reverb. Yeah. Keep eating. Where obviously the security, as you saw, was quite tight. So we are waiting for people. We will not start without it being a party. So just hang on, chat please, etc. We'll start when we start. Thank you for your patience.
Okay. Are the speakers going to use this?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
If you want, I've left it. You can turn them on or not. There's a podium up front on the
Brilliant.
side
I
there.
think so. We keyed it. I think I'll go for this venue.
I suppose I'm not really gonna
I'm going to be doing a lot of
do right.
staticking around.
Okay.
Okay. This is stand.
Unless yeah, is there?
Just that,
I mean, you could just leave it right there.
this might be a bit awkward. I haven't been briefed on this thing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is not too bad. Do not use.
Do not use.
Oh, okay.
That's just like telling someone to use it. Like,
Yeah.
do not use. I mean, maybe that's.
I'm sure we
We
can
should try to use it.
speak loud enough.
Okay, then I think there's a battery there.
Everywhere and nowhere.
Otherwise, you just leave it on the thing.
Yeah. It's too
Is
soft.
that? Can you hear?
I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's fine. Just speak up.
You can do the hovering mic for the questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that will work. Yeah, man, this there's so much potential to like really get the broadcasting set up and get the audio and make it a proper thing. Okay. It's possible to zoom.
Depends on the day. Some days, afternoon, and then some days with coding, you know.
Some others, that's not too bad. I can't find the mic stands.
Okay,
Didn't think of that.
next time. Yes. Fine.
She's on the other side telling me how to sound is. How are you? I just go with it. Yeah, that's all. I just go with it. Nothing wrong with changing your name.
You want to
Where's the bathroom? That's the bathroom. Down here.
It's not really Together.
It's good work, right? They track on issues and conflicts. Maybe we'll keep it.
I've never been at an event like this and run out of things to do. I've enjoyed the things like that was not. Did you find your photos? I'll be your photo.
Yeah, I think most of them. Everyone Derivatives went out.
Stop prepping there.
Forgot to file.
Hero. You could use the other one as well.
We had a good amount of reactions. But I haven't been to one actually. Closing all the tabs. I see you, so I'm also. And I was going to ask if you know how to put your laptop on Do Not Disturb.
Yes.
Oh,
You want to click on that icon
it's that. Oh, it's that one. That's why.
and then focus.
Okay. Focus.
I don't just say 1 hour.
1 hour. It should be. Do Not Disturb. Done. Okay. Until tomorrow morning. I don't want to be.
Too many tabs.
I had too many. Everything to see.
I'm usually really good with tabs.
No tabs. The guy was talking to me with my tabs.
So I don't actually work on this machine, so this is my personal.
I was torn because some of the resources I want to put on my work list, I ended up doing stuff, but it's a bit fun. It's fun for this.
Yeah.
Not doing anything.
My
It's usually just
work machine is one, so I can't really.
Well, guys, grab a drink, grab some pizza. Okay. Showtime, Justin. I'm curious to see how the sound's going to come through. I might need to turn off noise cancelling. Speaker is muted. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I can see if my wife is. Right. Hey, there's some people on. 5 people. Hey, guys. Hello. Hey, can I speak to Mom? Hello. Hey, sweetie. Hey, sweetie. Listen, we're gonna start now. Do you mind logging on and just telling me how the audio is?
I sent you the link to the stream, the live stream.
Hello, good people. All right, so we are going to start You can technically stay there. That's actually not a problem. If you really want, go upstairs. I don't know if you all saw this gallery. There are desks there. There are seats all around upstairs. I mean, I kind of, where are the stairs? How do you get this? You can't go. Oh, so sad. Okay, next time. Next time, I have a new mission in life is to fill this place. You guys with me? Who's with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we are gonna start. Please grab your drinks and and this would be the best place, but you're also welcome to stay there. Okay, and we have a live stream. I saw there are 5 people now online. That is the most we've ever had on live stream. That's cool. It is. Starting an event, a sort of community is more difficult than it might seem. So yeah. So thank you guys for joining in. No doubt they joined, and all of you are here because we have fantastic topics and fantastic speakers tonight. But even that is not even the main reason why everyone's here. The main reason everyone's here physically, one of the main reasons is to network, is to meet other people. So let me just say, we are a community of software developers called Deep South Devs, and just by being here, you belong. So you don't need to have a pull request reviewed or accepted or anything. You don't need to have your senior dev give you a sign off, nothing like that. It doesn't matter what the CTO thinks, all that stuff can be sorted out. But you belong. So welcome wherever you are on your coding journey. We are all together going from where we are to the next level. I think we all have that in common. We also have in common that we sort of live around here, or work around here. I'm deep in the south in Bishop, a place called Ferry No. I don't know who knows Ferry No. Wow, legend. Okay, so there's like one street. But it's in the Bishop area. Deep South Dev began. I started about 7 years ago in the Deep South because I didn't want to drive all the way up to town for meetups. I was going to the front end meetup led by Justin and Co. And I kind of got tired of driving, and I saw that there were so many developers in the South. So I started this group, but it turns out the developers in the South like to keep to themselves. So we've kind of been forced further and further north. So here we are at Salt River, Deep South Dev. Make of that what you will. But yes, so we are a volunteer sort of led group, and we are always looking for volunteers. So if you would like to get involved, there are kind of front of house things like emceeing, back of house things like sorting out drinks, giving venues, speaking to sponsors, social media. We don't really have much of a social media thing going on, so if you're a bit of a social media friendly, you can help out. There's just lots of scope, but what we need is like the energy and the kind of commitment and consistency to kind of get in and just get stuck in. So please speak to me if you're interested in getting involved in organizing at that level of a community. It is great for you personally to do that. You meet great people. I've made friends for life through this community, and it is great for your career. It is verifiably true. All right. So I think in terms of housekeeping, that's probably it. I'm going to call upon our host. Warren is our host today. from 2U. Let's give him a round of applause.
I said, hi everybody. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome here because I'm actually in DevOps. Really allowed to be with engineers. But yeah, welcome. When Sunjan mentioned that there was opportunity for us to host, we jumped at the opportunity. It's great to have you all here. I hope you enjoyed it. For those who haven't noticed, you are at 2U. I hope you saw the sign coming in. Anybody heard of 2U before? Except those who actually have worked here, there's a couple. And Get Smarter? Get Smarter popular to anybody? Over there? Yeah. Also, 2U is the holding company. 2U acquired Get Smarter about 5 years ago. So 2U is based in the US, and it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, online education providers in the world. You haven't heard probably about it, but you would have heard of edX maybe, and 2U is also the holding company. So we have university partners all around the world. Those are universities such as Harvard, Oxford, just like any university you can think of. We're partnered with them. There's over 250 in the world. And what we do is we basically take their courses and bring it online, make it available for everybody across the world. Those courses range from short courses like a 10-week program, like you might see on the Get Smarter website if you go there, all the way up to master's degrees that you can do online. So that's what we provide. And of course, being an edtech company, tech is obviously a huge cornerstone of what we do. So we've got a good few engineers around the world, and Cape Town has a very strong presence within that global engineering team. So is there an angle on why we invited you here? Maybe we have vacancies. Maybe we've got like 5 vacancies for engineers and senior and principal engineers. So yeah, if you are looking for a career move, please feel free to chat to me. We've got some vacancies on our careers page. We'd love to chat. Yeah, that's about it. Any questions about 2U or Get Smarter in general? If not, then there's just a couple of basic housekeeping rules. Housekeeping items. Bathrooms over there in that corner. Please do not go into the stairwell escape. You need an access tag to get out. I've learned this the hard way. You go in without an access tag, that's your life now. You're now someone, the troll of the staircase apparently.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Tomorrow morning someone will help you out. That's about it. Take a box of pizza with you, that's the best I can offer. We're obviously free to use this space. Please go ahead and grab whatever you want at any time. Let's not move on to that side, that's the workstation. Some people. Other than that, Dennis is our VP of cybersecurity. I think he's somewhere up in the corner. He is both here as a bouncer. He's got like a purple belt or something in jiu-jitsu. So if you are misplaced, you're not sure where you are, I'm sure Dennis will remind you that you are lost. Gently. Cool. That's it from my side then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Warren. Thanks for having us. And they also provide all the eats. So if you're sitting nice and full, just link to you. Thank you. So on to the first of our speakers. I'm going to introduce. So Sinjin he's from the south. He's lives in Luxembourg. He's been part of the community for a while, and he's been involved in also organizing for the community. And he just did not leave me until we had this event, and he wanted to speak. I'm kidding, there are actually quite a few talks that we had to whittle down to his, because Terraform is quite a key language these days and quite topical, and I thought that would be quite cool. And Sinjin's a great guy. He is from a place called Williston, is that right? Sorry, Winterton. Did you know where Winterton is? Who knows which province? Guess which province is it?
Northern Cape.
Northern Cape? Nah. In case it is, up North Drakensberg. That's pretty cool. So, yeah. So we're glad you're here. And let's give a round of applause for Sinjin. Sorry, one more thing. We have lots of swag to give away today. There is a way to get swag. There's an app. Is the first time we're using that, no, not second time we're using the app. So Sinjin is gonna show a URL and a Versal.app. It's raffle-helper-v2.versal.app, and you'll show that. Hop on there, you will find the event, you will find the raffles, and if the UX, now I'm supposed to be a front-end developer, but if the UX is not good, let me know, please. But it should be pretty self-explanatory to just enter. You can enter all the raffles, or one of them, or none of them, and we'll give away the physical. We'll do the draws after all the talks, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's fine. Share screen and get us.
Player 2, this is player 2.
I would just like to ask about Terraform, I suppose. It has recently, I'll get into it, but now just inspiration for thought. It has recently come into our workflow, and I've only been using it for the last year, but it has been quite nice and exciting, something different. So, who am I? My name is Sinjin. I am from a small town. I grew up in a small town, from small town schools. I moved to Cape Town 7 years ago now. I am married. My supportive wife is here. We live in Github and we chat. Yeah, I've been kind of in the system administration, software engineer position for the last 10 years. So kind of came from server administration side of things. Where it got exciting was the automation and this idea of being able to write stuff in code and for it to be repeatable. So using tools like Terraform, Ansible. I got like now there's all the ones like Puppet and Chef that are around. So what is Terraform? Terraform is infrastructure as code. It lets you build, change a version, cloud, and on-prem resources safe and so what HashiCorp has done is they've built this kind of wrapper, and they create providers and allow you to use other people's APIs in a similar and sort of way. I just thought I'd break down what Terraform is. You can see in the bottom left, Terraform is an ecosystem, and then the provider does the main integration part that integrates with the API. So at least when we're writing code, we're doing it in a similar sort of fashion, and then it interacts with the API however Yes, I want to show the providers page. There are many different providers for AWS, Azure, Console, EMS, name it. There's probably a Terraform provider on it. Go and have a look at their provider directory. We go find it. This is what a Terraform resource looks like. This creates a piece of instance. There is a kind of a boilerplate thing to do the sets of Terraform, but let's see why. just in the setup of Terraform, it provides an easy way to spin up these resources, and that is code. It can be committed to Github. So the Terraform state, everything is stored in a state file managed by Terraform. This state file maintains differences between what exists that the API provides and what you would like. The biggest gotcha when it comes to state is only one person can modify the state at a time. So if you're working on a shared resource on GitHub, both of you are working on the same code base, you can't be making changes at a time. The state can. So there are ways to store the state in the cloud. By default, it's stored in a file in a Mac, but maybe the better way is it's stored in an S3 bucket, and S3 bucket access control, and given a region, and then we use DynamoDB as a file name, so that if I'm making changes, creates a log file in DynamoDB, means nobody else using a. This microphone seems to be waving in and out of. Yeah, but then it's like it's not picking me up properly then. This is the first view. And we include a provider. So this is a similar way to maybe software development practices where you have a requirements file and you can specify a version that you would require and you can put it to a version. In this case, I believe it's greater than or equal to 5. So when you do the setup of Terraform, it will make sure that the GitHub provider is greater than that version. This helps you manage changes. Providers do provide extra config options, an example, GitHub that we're going to be dealing with now, and we found that every provider has their own documented set of structure in a very similar. So some benefits of managing GitHub with Terraform. I'm not going to skim through the list. So it's automation and consistency, just because we get to store the code in GitHub. Simplified resource management, we're able to use software methodologies to help manage resources. In this case, it is GitHub, but it can be instances or, versioning and auditing is stored in GitHub. We do pull requests. Everything is kind of version controlled. It's easy to roll back because we have these known states that we can roll back to. It's got a bit of reusability, still nowadays the resource management and that way kind of grow and scale this because it's they change the rollbacks, versioning, auditing, touched on that, and then you can see all of these things kind of contribute to the infrastructure as code approach. We just happen to be using Terraform, but the idea that it's stored in GitHub and is collaboratively managed is definitely the key part. So just getting around the GitHub provider docs. Every provider looks similar. They provide a bunch of resources and data sources, as an example. The resources create things, the data sources fetch information. So it depends what you want to do on your code. If you're going to be creating repositories, you'll use a resource. If you wanted to say list me all the repositories organization, you would use a data resource for gathering that information inside of Terraform. So I will jump into something now, but some of the setup, we create a service account in GitHub, and the reason we do a service account is to generate a classic access token. The access token in our case is the admin org, delete repo and repo settings, because we want this user to be managing admin side of Terraform. GitHub, we want it to be creating repositories, we want it to be inviting members. So this service account does have a lot of permission in our environment. The secret for this, once it's generated, copied it straight into the repository secrets and the access token. This means that in sort of like the GitHub actions or whatever, I can reference the access token, and at least this kind of secure pipe of getting the credentials in there. For the demo, I'm just going to be running everything locally, and I have exported the access token into my environment. So I know, but I can share the repo afterwards, and I have the GitHub action, I believe, just going to chat about it as well. I have a GitHub action, you go and have a look, that just plans. Yeah. Okay. I just share my other. Code demos. Can everyone see what? Yes. I use ChatGPT to help me with some project names for dummy projects. So it came up with Cosmic Canvas and Nebula Fusion. Nebula Fusion, development powerhouse. Nebula Fusion is your cosmic hub for seamless team collaboration and project management. And then I tried to go for the front-end website approach. The development, your cosmic hub for seamless team collaboration. That's a bit of a duplicate. Anyway, one was meant to be the website and one was meant to be the so Terraform resources. You can see the style is very similar to creating the EC2 instance. These parameters come from the GitHub provider documentation. Everything is listed there. It will tell you if it is required or optional. So I only have name and description. Description probably wasn't even required. You just need a name of your repository.
You might just zoom in one more level.
And it zooms everything.
There.
So through the demo, I'm kind of going to be working through the files on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to be iterating upon kind of the steps we go through and maybe how we would build a scalable system. So it's like, okay, you want to create a repository in Terraform. There's a GitHub repository resource for that. You give it a resource name. The resource name is different to the repository name. The resource name is unique to Terraform. The repository name might be unique to GitHub. So to create a repository, given its name and description. We want a team attached to the repository. We want people to be able to manage that. So we can create a GitHub team resource. We give it a resource name, we can put a team name and a team description. I've set the privacy to closed. In this case, this means other people can't see who the team members are, but we get to pick. And then, so the first resource creates, first one creates the resource, second one creates the team, and now you assign the team to the repository. Let me find going to run the Terraform plan. So there are 3 resources uncommented on the screen. Here, there's the GitHub repository. Terraform's nice and descriptive. This is telling me actually, it's telling me that the plan is going to add 3 new things and change nothing and destroy nothing. So I know that's quite a good outcome that I expect straight away. So it's going to create the repository. It's listing all those default options that we go into. But you will see here that there is a name and there is a description. So those are the 2 ones. You can probably go and set all these resources based. You need Dev team, same thing. We've given its name, canvas dev team, the privacy is closed, and it has a description, and then we assign. So in this case, I just used a left push permission, but this would come from Github. So these are prescribed. We can create custom roles, but it would be push and pull, and I think you get a repository maintainer and a repository. Cool, so we want another repository. Okay, we've got another repository. We want another team, there's another team, and we're gonna link the two together. So now, I'll actually switch to the GitHub organization in a moment. So now there are 6 to add. We expect that. We're adding 2 new repositories, 2 new teams, and then we're linking those together. So, Terraform apply. So now Terraform is going to, do you want to perform these actions? Let's check. Yes. Now in the background, Terraform is going to go and create those for me as it's saw on the plan. So you read the plan is going to tell you what it's going to change. It's Terraform is nice and scripted like that. We'll get to the changes now, and you'll see how it highlights specific. It's taking just a sec. I'm not easily going to be able to switch. Nothing else connects. I just wanted to show you the repository role. Sorry, this. I created a blank GitHub organization that are free as long as all your code is open source and available for everyone to read. So just to mirror what Terraform did, we have 2 repositories. At the top here, we have 2 teams. The people, it's only myself and the organization, but I'll go through the process of inviting one to other people. And if I look at a repository, setting, collaborators. That's, I'll get to that in a sec. So we should see that. Okay. So now we have 2 repositories, 2 teams, they're each linked to their own repository. If we now wanted a bit of cross-access, so now we wanted to give read access to one team to the other repository, we just need to create another link. So in this case, I've given it a really long resource name and keep it unique. So in this case, we link the Cosmic Canvas repository to the Nebula Fusion div. Now I'm able to go, everything else has been applied. So you can see the plan does a refresh, just in case nobody has changed something outside of Terraform. And we see here, so now there's only one thing to add. My repositories already exist. Terraform isn't going to create, manage all of this in its state file. The state file knows what Terraform needs to do. If you come along and delete the resource in GitHub, Terraform is going to create it again. If they can't find it, it's going to want to put it back. So I'm going to, and that is GitHub and Terraform. So that's like the bare bones to it. This doesn't scale so well, as you can see. How many repositories do we need? You know, this might work for 10 or 20. You're managing this. Maybe you've got one team that needs permission to 20 repositories that might be easy to manage in a file or maybe multiple files. But we need to leverage some more software coding use of it. So I'm going to just kind of take these same concepts and just show ways in Terraform on how you can loop through resources. So I've commented everything I know. Terraform will run a plan first. So there is no more Terraform code. Terraform wants to go and remove everything. It is okay, I'm going to do everything in this case, but when it says there are 7 to destroy, pay attention. Because it's not. Let's switch back to switch back here now. There's no more repositories. Okay. Terraform gives us 2 ways to loop. We can use count on resources, or we can use for each on resources. An example is count. It's like, hey Terraform, give me 4 of these things. They expose this count on index. So it's going to loop through all the resources. I'm just going to be running apply. It does a plan first, and then I have to type yes to actually run the apply. Save a bit of time. If I run the plan on its own, it does nothing, and then I have to run the apply. But the plan is nice. We use it on our build step for code. So as soon as the developer pushes code to a branch, it runs a Terraform plan against the infrastructure. So you know you're not going to break anything by running a plan. Everybody gets a Terraform plan for all of this. Okay. So there are 4 to add. So my count is 4. My count is 4. The repository name uses the count index. I'll have a look here. So there's the description. You can see it's got repo number 3, and there's the name, my repository number 3. There's my repository number 2, my repository 1, and 0 index. So using we can use for each as well. For each loops over a map. So count is a bit more list-based, whereas the for each is a bit easier with map. So in our case, what we're looping over is a map of objects. The key of the map is cosmic canvas, name of our repository, and inside this, so this is an object. Inside there's one parameter description. I'm doing this in kind of like locals now. I will move up and show you how to do it in more Terraform fashion. I'm just doing this in line to show you how. So it's going to loop over these. So instead of name, we can use each.key. As it's doing the loop, Cosmic Canvas and Nebular Fusion are the key that it's going to be using. And then the value is the object. So in this case, we've got an object with just one parameter. Each value is the object with just one parameter that I'm pulling up. So when I run this now, you can see the resource name is a bit different. I have used this because it's not specifically Cosmic Canvas anymore. So I've used a generic placeholder. You can say repos, repositories. It's point of vintage. I like it because so it loops through the key becomes the Terraform object key, and we've got Nebular Fusion, and we've got that's at the moment our variables are stored inside the resource. That doesn't make it very practical. If this list grows exponentially long, takes a bunch of times, this thing gets still more weirdly, unwieldy handled, so it works. Small number that doesn't scale very well. So what we're able to do is we're able to use either Terraform variables or locals. So for this part of the demo, locals, we're able to pull the information into a variable called repositories. Repositories is still the map. We can still have Cosmic Canvas here, the description, run that. So we've got our same two resources that we have. In the for each, instead of using this map, instead of using the map in the for each, we're specifying the local that we have created. So just a way to save your variables. And I can just reference it, local repository. So it's in the same data shape. So everything's kind of the same data shape. This is going to move progressively towards how to express data, because Terraform is relatively limited in that, like, to create the resource is simple, but you've now got to try and express the data that you've had in a repeatable way that you can then loop over with the Terraform. You've only got for each and count as kind of your, so you've got to use these other bits and pieces that Terraform gives you to piece together what you need to do in the repeatable fashion. Whereas in something maybe like Python, you can just code what you need to do. Terraform and Ansible, and you're restricted to their kind of ecosystem. How would that be scaled to teams? Similar, we've got the key, the object, team description in the for each. We're going to reference the local that we create. Commented out. Two to add. It just wants to create the two teams. I'll actually get along to actually adding this stuff now. Yeah, let's just brush over that. So now you want to link the teams to the repositories. What we had in the beginning over here, like the scaling issue, is having to have multiple of these link resources. So you've got 10 teams, each of those 10 teams need access to 10 repositories. So now the number of link resources, the number of these blocks of code you need scales based on that number, so 10 times 10. So now you're going to have many, and like I said, sure, you can scale in a file up to the point that you need to kind of think about the scale. So this is maybe where it gets a bit. I've tried to pull everything from the other files into this one, so I'm not referencing back and forth. So we set the repositories and the locals. Terraform cares about descriptions. For locals, they don't care about the shape of your data, but when you are handing data to Terraform from the outside, they very much care about describing this sort of thing. So you need to know what the shape of the data is, and it's going to complain if it's not right. So just to make it easier, I've just stuck with locals for now. I just wanted to show you that this repositories variable is represented the same way here. Even doesn't matter how many of these I add, that representation. It's the same thing for teams. Now we've got the repositories we want to add, we've got the teams we want to add, and then I've added this teams parameter. So it's like, what team needs permission to this repository? In this case, we just want one team. But for Cosmic Canvas, we would like multiple dev teams to be part of this. So this is now where things change a little bit. And then we've got the two teams we create like normal. So the teams and the repositories will be through in the other files, they'll be created. But now how do we break out this inner list into a usable form that we can pass to a single Terraform? So in this case, we have the Nebula Fusion dev team gets assigned to Nebula Fusion repo, and the Cosmic Canvas dev team and the Nebula Fusion dev team get assigned to the Cosmic. So we would effectively have 3 links if we had to be writing these out, but we just want one Terraform resource. So we can loop over the objects, and then we loop over the inner objects as well, and we create a new format. And this will break out now our link into the repository and the team that needs access to it. So we end up with the Nebula Fusion and the Cosmic Canvas dev team need access to it. So yeah, so for repo name over repo object in local repositories, actually go to this definition. So for repo name, repo object, we look here, so it's going to go over for repo name. And then this is now the repo object that we're using. The repo object has description and teams. Going here. So we are now going to have another loop over the teams inside this repo object. Now we're looping through this. So even though that's a list of 1 item, it's still going to loop over that single item because it's a list. And in this case, we're going to be looping over multiple. So the structure is the same, and we're able to use the same logic across the board. So that now gives us kind of these things we're able to work with. Terraform likes working with apps. So this turns our list of repositories that we have here back into a map that we use. So yeah, so it uses repository name, it uses a repository name, and the team name is the key. So it creates a map. Repository. Team name is equal to this. So now this kind of changes the shape of your data again from a list, so you can see the lists are denoted by the square braces, to a map. There's an option. The for each works the same way. So now the data is in the same shape. It looks the same to Terraform. So everything we're doing beforehand is transforming the data into the right shape that we can then pass it to the Terraform resource. So this is where Terraform, to me, is a bit limiting. It doesn't have a lot of those data transformation tools that you might need or be used to. And then I've left the resources in here to create a repository, create a team. Run this, there are 7 to add, which is the same in my first example. So we have 2 repositories here, we have 2 dev teams, and then we have 3 repository links, 2 to one repo, 1 to the other repo. That's kind of how you might start scaling. Like you want, so in this file, there's a whole lot of fluff precursor, but we have a single resource which actually does all of it. So there's maybe less duplication on that. So just run and apply while waiting here. The members, I realized earlier I have not tested. I have left Heinrich and Warren in here as members. They may get a GitHub organizational invite, I hope. So I'll change stuff and click apply. So the members works a bit differently. If the user is already a member of your organization, they will immediately be added to the team. If your member is not, if this user is not a member of your organization, they will get an invite to be a member. So we've had to be careful that we're not inviting people who shouldn't be members anymore. So you kind of have to be careful. Terraform is going to want to add anyone. So if you've got an organizational admin who's removed someone from your organization a week ago, and you go and run your Terraform plan, you will see that the user will be invited, but if you go and run the apply, the user will be invited, and they just have to click the accept button, they will be added to the team. Because the GitHub users are external to the organization. Like the GitHub user is your own, it just has permission inside of an organization. So this triggers an invite. I've left our usernames in there. It has been an interesting challenge linking people's GitHub usernames, names. So here, there's the three users I've added. I'm just adding them as a member to the organization. So, I think, over here. I don't know what it's going to do with my name. I'm already part of the org. Okay, I cannot demote myself. Cool. I set the role to member. So kind of to extend this maybe further is you would want to set the role for each person. The idea we're moving to code is so that we can remove ownership from people directly and we can move it into code. So if you've got permission to add a new employee to your team, like we don't need to do that for you. You can create a PR to the repo, it can be approved by the relevant people, and it can be created. But those change controls are placed so that it's not just somebody adding something at 11 p.m. at night that we don't know about. It can be done anytime, but at least we know about it. There's an audit trail, it's tracing. And we can go back if I wonder if I had to go to people now. There are 2 invitations. So it has triggered off the invites. If I remove them, I'm going to leave the resource in place. I'm just going to remove kind of all the people from it. Now, because we're dealing with lists, a list of no items or a list of 10 items is still a list. It still iterates over it. It's just not going to do anything if there's nothing. So, yeah, so the is going to be destroyed. Yeah, I've left our permissions. So now at the moment, I have given everyone push permissions to every repo. So now we want to give read access to someone. How might we extend to give read access to people? So this might look familiar again. It used to just be teams, maybe the Fusion Dev team, and I would default be like, oh, everyone's got push access. But now we want to be a bit more picky. So I've changed teams from a list into a map. Maps allow us to give objects to them, which allows us to be more descriptive about what we want to do. Okay, so this is the only change. So now instead, so we've got the same loop over the repositories, but our inner loop, instead of looping over a list, we're now looping over a map. So that changes to a loop. That's your key value. So you loop, your key is now your team name, and your value is now, in this case, it's just push. Before we have like description and we can extend it as much as we want. We just need push So the inner map looks the same, except we've added this extra value called team permission. And then when we actually reference it down here in Github team repository, instead of just having pull or push or maintainer, it's coming from the loop, coming from the value team permission. Hope that makes sense. That to me is the crux of managing this. I wanted to just go a little further in working with Terraform data types. Terraform has been limiting, so there are some functions I'm used to when dealing with lists and maps, like in index by. So say you've got a, maybe, so this is, in this case, we're creating a new map with a new key. So we're saying, hey, give me all of these objects that look like this and put them into this map. We've got filter by, so give me all the people with team permission pool. We're able to create a new map with all of those people with the permission pool. And group by, so give me, so maybe we can group by team permission. So now we've got pull, push, and maintain. So now of our list of members that have group by. So of our members here, push and pull, these will then be grouped by, and you'll end up with a new object. But the key of that object will be your key. So you'll end up with all the users, or in this case, it'll be all the teams that have push access. So instead of just being maybe a filter for one, you will end up with a new list that you can work against. So maybe people with pull access need to be, or people with push access, you need to run a report on them. You're able to kind of group all your data in different ways. So to show how that might work. Yep. Want to leave all the other resources in place so Terraform doesn't try and course. Duplicate local file. This also. I duplicated a lot of stuff between files to help make it a little bit easier for me. It's gonna work through this. Terraform is quite nice and quite descriptive in its trees, boards. So it wants to destroy a bunch of the that could, I know why, it's because I'm removing all these resource definitions. It wants to go and clean up after me. Yeah, that's good. Let's change things. Now the file's not working, so I'm going to pull some of the, but this also isn't. I'm just going to change some permission. So this is actually now applying the permission changes that I did. I got the inadvertently, it's working here. I'm just going to run that apply. So when I started on this journey, the feedback loop for Terraform was really hard for me. I felt like I was dealing with these lists and objects and data types, and there was no way for me to display them. I came across output. It's actually used to pass information outside of Terraform, so you can reference it from other Terraform applications. CloudFormation has outputs as well. So just kind of like an external, almost API base that you can query easily. So it's like you as the dev get to tell people what they must consume from your application. I started using it to debug output. It is handy, so I'm going to pull it just into the permission step here, and I'm going to just use it to show the shapes of these things we've been working with. So I'm going to pull out local.teams. So local.teams is this nub up here. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say your, and the value is like, yeah, it's not that. So changes to outputs. Outputs themselves are objects like everything else. They will be reflected as changes, but to me at the moment, that's what I'm looking for. Is I'm not necessarily going to commit this and apply this, but I'm going to use it for my debugging. So I'm able to show the shape of the data, because what you're going to be doing is doing this sort of data transformation. So in this case, we're creating this repository link map from this list of repositories. So as we're transforming data through the pipeline, it's just an easy way to help us kind of get an output to see if that made the same shape or not. So we've got teams. Let me use a different one. Local repository. I'll just name. A different name. There's the map, and it's got the repository name, team permissions. So you can kind of see that I got this example from the outputs while I was doing this. But you can see at least like I'm expecting my data to be in the shape. At least you can see visually that it looks the same. So it just helps debugging. Yeah. I think that's the kind of the code part of it. I don't know how much time. How much? I just like I think one more thing I just wanted to rush up on. We use a single sign-on, and it is a way for our organization to manage the members in our organization. So we have a team that manages Active Directory and crew. So we do cheats a little bit and we use single sign-on as use one login as a single sign-on provider. But they've got an integration for GitHub in that our teams can assign a user in our organization a Active Directory group, and AD and OneLogin and GitHub kind of communicate through Skim as a cross-domain user management protocol. So the team here is able to add users to our GitHub organization. That is different to adding the users to the GitHub organization like this. So in our case, as an enterprise user, we don't choose the resource, other people do that for us, but we still have to manage those people. So I have a data resource that queries the organization for all our users. We're able to kind of do sanity checks of who should be part of our org based on who's there and who needs to be removed. The problem is people get added and removed outside of Terraform. Terraform doesn't like that very much. So we've kind of pulled together this sync, which works quite well in that it scans the list of GitHub users because we know the organization names are meant to be there. Active Directory puts them there. So we use Python code that scans the list of users and it reads the Terraform, reads this Terraform variables file. There's a library for HTL, hashtags, something language. And it basically imports users that were changed outside of Terraform into the code. So it's basically manually doing that code. Syngen was added to my org. Let's add Syngen to this file with the default. And that is what the code is doing. So next time I come along to run a plan and apply, that user is already there. Otherwise, Terraform is going to want to remove it because Terraform doesn't know about it. So there's this little sync that happens just because there's this kind of dance of what happens outside of our control, and Terraform doesn't like that. That's the flow. The user gets added to AD. That triggers an automatic invite to our organization. The user clicks on, they get a tile. So one login gets the tile, the user clicks on the tile, they get added to the organization. And that creates the link between Active Directory and GitHub. And there's some information like your domain email address that gets transferred with that. So we're able to get the domain usernames and things like that, which maybe normal GitHub users. So it helps us extend it a bit more on an enterprise level. Yeah, this week. I started typing this out. Take it on. So I think the thing to think about is all about the scalability. It's fine for 10 users, it's fine for 50 users. What about 100? What about 1,000? Your files are going to get bigger and bigger and longer and longer. So how do we start scaling this outside of Terraform and files? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Syngen. So don't go anywhere. Q&A. Turn on the volume. Okay. I asked the first question for Q&A, and that is, since Terraform went proprietary license, is there any point to us, maybe someone who hasn't started with Terraform, to actually go down that road, or is it still legit?
I think the licensing change has stirred up the open source community quite a bit. So Terraform was historically completely open source. You could download the source code, you could package it in your application, you could deploy your own Terraform as a service. So Terraform Cloud, HashiCorp does this. They have stopped people from creating products using Terraform to compete with them. So the licensing is like a business licensing, so you can't include the Terraform source code in your application, and you can't build a business off the Terraform source code. They want to keep that code kind of proprietary, but the code is open source, and you can continue using it. We're probably going to continue using it. There are some sort of, you can see the open source fanatics, but it's the people, now HashiCorp has gone and changed something that was historically forever going to be open source. So I can understand maybe they've chased away fans, they've lost a bunch of subscribers, but I think the everyday person, it's not going to change the way Terraform functions. I know OpenTF has kind of put their foot down and said, we will fork off Terraform now, and I think they have. I don't know if it's going to be adopted widely here yet, just because it doesn't affect us directly. We're just using Terraform to deploy our infrastructure, not using it to compete.
That's TLDR, Storm and Teacup.
They set up the community. So.
Okay, any other questions for Sergio?
Well, my question is actually more for everybody here. Is there anybody here who you manage GitHub yourselves and see value in this, or you were a victim of a poorly managed GitHub and see how this could be useful in your organization? Just keen to see what the general feel is about automating.
Yeah, we do it manually.
Yeah.
Before.
It's not fun.
No, okay.
I did something sort of Ansible some years ago for an organization of like 30 devs. When I was still at GMB, I wrote a similar script in Ansible that managed the same thing. And when we were about 30 devs, there'd be, but still manually you have to go and change the resource file with the username and stuff. But yeah, at 30, you're not really at the scale where that's a problem yet.
And like something like Ansible is a bit different in that it doesn't have a state. So you're gonna you're gonna be putting them in a file, but Ansible is just gonna go and try and create the user. So each plugin, I suppose, does have a yeah, but okay, it doesn't store a file. I think you're right in that they use the name of the resource as the state lookup rather than maybe storing all the information in a file. So there are some ways of looking up the resource, but when you specify its name, Ansible is going to put whatever you tell it in place, whereas Terraform compares the two, what should be there. So we use both. We use Ansible to deploy Terraform. They do different things. So but Ansible is good for configuring servers, managing software. Terraform is good for creating the servers.
Okay, I think let's do the last question. Any other questions? Yeah, right here, two more questions.
Awesome. You briefly started with using count, going into the loops of Terraform. You knew this question was coming. You briefly started with count and then moved on to for loop. What is your preference on those type of for loops?
So what we've got is we've got count and for each. We sway to using for each for our loops. Terraform likes working with map as the object because your map has a key, and Terraform uses that key to help manage the state. So if you are basing your logic off of a list, unfortunately, if the position in the list changes, Terraform is going to want to change everything after the fact. So if I've got a list of 5 names or 5 repository names, and I come and add a repository in the middle of, positionally in the middle of my list, Terraform is going to move all the other resources are one, and it's going to rename stuff rather than maybe creating new repos. So it'll like rename all your repos to a different name rather than create a whole new repository. So use for each and maps.
Thank you. I just have two questions. The first question is more about Terraform, technicalities about Terraform. What's the difference between variables and local? Because I haven't seen variables being used. And then my second question is about, for someone, let's say, using SAM or transformation, what would be the incentive to move to Terraform?
The locals and variables, the variables files and the definitions, I kind of glossed over there now, I don't want to touch on it, but the variables are very prescribed, so you're getting that information maybe outside of Terraform, or you're defining a file that has to be very shape specific. So you have to say, this is a list of strings. I'm giving you a list of strings, or I'm giving you a list of objects, or you are a map of objects. So when you're using the Terraform kind of native built-in variables, you have to define the shape of your variable, and then your data needs to prescribe and fit in that shape. Using locals is a cheat code in that it doesn't care about all of that. I can type any variable of any shape data I want into locals, as long as when Terraform's looping over, as long as they all look the same, Terraform's not going to care. But using the variables and the native stuff, you have to define, you have to have the variable definition along with the data.
Thank you very much, Sanjay.
I do have the repo, I will push my code. Those examples are there, with like losing locals and using the Terraform variables.
Okay, let's give him one last round of applause. All right, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break. I've got a task for you, or 3 tasks. One task. Let's just do it right now. So stand up and just wiggle. Right now, stand up, please. Someone. Don't let me wiggle alone. Okay, cool. Now that we're wiggling. Okay, no, that wasn't a real task. The real task is to grab a drink. The next real task is to grab some pizza. Next real task is to speak to one person that you do not know, that you've never seen in your life. Find someone and just say, hey, do that, and then come, and Justin's gonna set up for the next talk.
Nice to meet you.
You were also there. Oh, yeah. They promised me a shirt. I need to buy it. They probably didn't see it. I said it's for the
Yeah, we're very
Sorry.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'd like to meet someone else.
Yeah, I mean, so no, I just want to say between the talks over there and here now, so I can say hi. It's all good. I didn't want to step together and stuff. Yeah, I've got the two at the front are the speaker ones, and then the one at the back is the reference. I went to the. I went to the Terraform one last week. Chat to the guys. I know Benny. He used to be a great. The job I mean, way back in the day. So I went to chat to them and said, listen, I'm doing the same sponsorship for them. They opened a Stitch office last week. Walk into Stitch is exactly the same fucking mug. So it's fine. Next time when it's not at Stitch, then we'll give some mugs. I didn't want to read on Stitch's parade since they were hosting it in the same mugs. So it's nice of you. It's fine. I should like it officer in like 5 years.
Yeah, well, it's a competitive landscape.
I'm still using my office one like that, but the like paint starts to kill.
You use your office one?
Yeah. Yeah, my wife uses the Github one.
I've got the old one, which is
nice. Yeah, let me go speak to someone I don't know.
Okay, let's we're gonna get started in a couple minutes. There'll be lots of time for them to come out with out in the street. Okay, so if you want to do that, you are more than welcome. There's a Deep South Devs, kind of a Deep South Devs bank account. And if you want to sponsor real money, and I'll be able to pay for custom domain. I have the Deep South Devs.co.za that I pay for myself. And but Versal will want some other money for that. I don't know what they want for a custom domain, but it's not worth it. Maybe I'll set it up on S3 myself. Cool, yeah, so that is, it's not too bad. Come on, Raffle Helper V2 Versal, that's not too bad. It's worth it. There are lots of raffles there, lots of stuff. So please enter away. Is it anyone entered? Well, I'll get to see that you entered. Yeah, well, good. Pretty simple there. Cool. Well, we'll do the draw at the end, so stick around. And I'm going to invite my friend, who for now shall remain nameless. I'll tell you his name shortly. But what he did is even maybe more important. What he did is about 7 years ago, I was looking to start a community, and I don't even know how we came across each other, but we did. He was kind of like a CTO, dev manager, head of engineering kind of a role at JB Health Systems in Tokai, and he believed in community as he still does today, and he just made it happen. Sorted out the venue, even he spoke at one of the events, and we had our initial events at JB Health Systems in Tokai. And he was great. I couldn't have done it without him. He was the earliest, even co-founder of Deep South. So, and now he's sponsoring. We've got these beautiful. Justin, why don't you hold that bag up? There's some really cool stuff, some really cool things that the one person will. And actually, Justin, you got your own speaker gift. That's from them and St. John. So, yeah, great partner. His name is Trevor Gower, and he has a company called Decode Development. And I'll invite him to tell us a little bit more about that.
Cheers, thanks, Alex. Wow, that's bright. That's better. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Alex said, I'm Trevor Gowing, co-founder and managing director of Decode Development. We're a boutique South African software development agency specializing in web and cross-platform mobile applications. Yeah, we've mostly been working in the edtech space and the health tech space for the last 4 or 5 years now. I don't know, I lose track. I've been doing Decode longer than I work for anyone else, as scary as that is. So if you'd like to learn more about us, then come and have a chat with me. I've got some projects coming up. I need potentially permanent people, potentially freelancers. So if you're interested in full stack TypeScript stuff, come talk to me. Okay. Awesome. And speakers, enjoy your presence, and I think there's one for raffle as well. Over to Justin.
Could have gone for one more minute.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, great. So the two, so everyone, usually if you're looking for something, you have two options on either end of the scale. You have two New York Stock Exchange listed multinational, and you have Decode Dev, a local dev house. So very different experiences. Pick your one, apply to all, see what happens. Okay, so okay. This guy, Justin Slack, he is an organizer of the very first meetup I went to before Deep Cloud Devs existed. And I really owe a lot to you. You guys really inspired me. I made a career of front-end development and it kind of all started there. So it's fantastic to welcome you to tell us more about Figma. Justin Slack is the head of design and front-end, which is a really interesting title. I wish more companies combine the two, but anyway, side note. At New Media Labs, and they are in Oxford, work remotely, South River, Black River, right now, and yeah, you'll see just how smart it is now. So yeah, thank you, Justin, for telling us more about Figma. Give him a round of applause.
Thanks, Alex. I remember the first meetup that you came to all those years ago. So it's nice to be here. Right. So as Alex mentioned, can you hear me okay? Yeah. I do have a rather odd title of head of design and front-end development, which means I manage a team of both UI and UX designers and front-end developers at NML. And one of the things that we strive to do, sorry, I'm just going to get rid of this. Don't mind. One of the things we strive to do is to really foster as close collaboration between our design team and our developers as we can. Don't always get it right. It's a hard thing to manage. But what I want to talk about this evening is how a massive update and upgrade to Figma has gone a really, really long way in fostering this kind of easy collaboration between designers and developers. So every year Figma have a conference called Config, and at that they announce in the keynotes what they've done and what features they've released in the last year. And at this one, they released a massive upgrade. May have had something to do with Adobe buying $20 billion, but I'm not sure about that. But what they released was this new mode in Figma that's called Dev Mode, Developer Mode, which is something that didn't exist before. Previously, we were able to inspect a component in Figma via the Inspect tab, and I'm sure if you've been in that at any time in your life, you've wondered, why is this telling me that all I can do is position it absolutely 427 pixels from the left? Which was kind of the default CSS mode that you were going to get out of Dev Mode in Figma. So they've introduced that, and I'm going to demo a few things around that and show you how you can use this to your advantage as a developer. And then they've also introduced a number of things that are more designer focused, but also of great use to developers. And two of those are variables and prototyping. Okay, so this is very much going to be, I'm showing you stuff, yeah? I don't even have a single slide. No, I do. I have the one for the reference. Okay, so I'm just going to go into a simple example file, and I'll show you some of the new things that we've got in Figma. So in this case, here we're in design mode. You'll see it's a little bit small there. I can't make that any bigger, unfortunately. Maybe dark would be better. Is that better? Yes, no? Say. Okay. All right. Well, we can stick with dark. Okay. So if you've ever been in Figma as a developer before and you're working with designers who know what they're doing, you should be working a lot with things that we would call components. And this is an example of a component. And in Figma, you can see it's a component because of that little icon there. It's kind of like a little diamond. And that tells you this is a component. If we look at our properties on the right here, we'll see that it's a component called card. And we can go and start to add documentation to this. Okay, that's the first thing that they've added and made it a lot easier for developers, is that designers can now go and document things attached to a component. So they can say, this is a card component. It should be used for this. These are the states. This is, at this size, it's a mobile version. At this size, it's for a tablet, etc. This is a full rich text editor. Here, you can actually even add code in here if you want to. Not sure why you would, but anyway. All these things were definitely added by the developers at Figma, not the designers. Yeah. And you can also link to documentation. So here you can add any link to a wiki that you might have. You can link directly to the code for a component in your repo. All of that can be done on a component level. So that's one thing that's been introduced that's making it a lot easier. Sometimes you go into Figma and you see a component, you're like, well, how does this work? What am I supposed to do with this? What's the harvest date? What happens if someone clicks here? What does it look like when the screen size changes? So on, so on. And previously, to document that, you had to rely on kind of messy third-party plugins and the horror of Figma comments that no one ever resolves, or sticky notes, which was tended to be one of our favorite. Well, we still use those. They're good. But yeah, so that's already something that we've got that's going to make these things a lot easier. Okay. Now, this. Because this is covering really important parts. Okay, there it is. On my screen. I'll just move. Okay. So, Figma's introduced this big button here, and that was never there before. Previously, in the side panel, we had design, prototype, and inspect. And inspect is where we get all our. Please position this absolutely at this random number. Now we have what's called design mode or dev mode, and I can click the switch, or I can just hit Shift D, and I've now switched into dev mode. And we still have this inspect, but it's like inspect on steroids. Very, very different now. Now, just a couple of things to note. As we move into this mode, things go kind of green to indicate we're in developer mode, button is switched, etc. And our sidebar here changes. So normally we would be seeing the layers here, and that's for the designer. But here on components, we're seeing the properties and the states. So that's already a major shift on how we can start looking at what are these things doing. But now, importantly here, it says nothing is marked as ready for development yet. Select a section or top level frame to mark it ready for dev. Okay. So here I can go back. I'm going to go back to my design mode. I'm going to go to this card, and I'm going to select my section, which is this whole thing here, and I'm going to click this little icon, and I've now marked it ready for dev. So now you come in here and you go, okay, I can start building this. I'm not wondering, is this ready? Is there a sticky note that says this is signed off? So we've automatically got this. This is ready. Off you go. And you can see here on the left, we're still in design mode. That icon has now been also added to our page. To our section to say, okay, great. this is ready for development. And now if we go into dev mode, we see, ready for development, our card, and we've got 2 versions of our card that are ready for development. And if we click on them, we see our component there, and this is our horizontal variant. And if we click here, this is our vertical variant. And we already start to see how these things look. And then there's this thing here, open in playground. So when we open this in the playground, we can now look at the various modes. So by default, we have property 1, which is vertical, and color light or dark. I'll get into that later. If I close this and I just go to the top level of the component and I open it in the playground, I can switch between the different modes here. So this is giving us an idea. This is a very basic example here. You wouldn't be working on something that looks like, well, I hope not. So you can switch between those. So you can see, well, how is this going to look? And you're already getting an idea. Like, what is the interaction that's going to happen on this particular component? Whereas a lot of the time you've got to guess, or the designer has to do a whole lot of different frames to indicate different states. Now we just create variants in the components and we can switch between them, which is really nice. Okay, I'm going to go to something else here, and I'm going to go back to design mode, and we're going to look at so here we've got, it's a simple modal where we might have a background and there's a message, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I do. No, I don't. It's a standard thing. Yeah. And what I want to look at here is we've got this thing here called local variables. Now, previously in Figma, well, not previously because we not do them anymore, we used to set up styles for all our colors, all our text properties, etc. And we could literally end up with hundreds of those. And it became very, very hard to manage. So Figma has introduced variables. And within variables, we can, for example, say, okay, I want to do color, and I'm just going to put in a bunch of colors. And you can create 4 types of variables: color, number, strings, or booleans. So very similar to what we are kind of used to as working in front-end frameworks, etc. We're using this kind of stuff all the time. So we can then select these and then we can start to apply them. But we can also alias them, so I can go, okay, I've set up these colors, so I've got blue, but now I want an applied color, and I'm going to create a color, and I'm going to call it button BG, and I'm going to say create alias, and I'm going to select my blue variable that I've set. So if our colors need to change, we don't change them in the applied ones that we're using. We just go back and change them in that, and it automatically updates. And it's like if you ever used custom properties for naming things in CSS and so on, very, very similar to that. I'm not going to get into this into much more detail. This is very much more what your designers should be doing, but not without collaboration and consultation with the developer. Otherwise, again, the developer comes in and goes, well, what is all this? Okay. So if I then go to my button here, I've got my color assigned, and you see that it's blue. And I don't want it to be blue because that's meaningless. What if down the line it's green? Or is it still blue? Well, no problem. So I can then go and assign it to my applied color, which is my button back. And if I now go into dev mode, you can see that it's telling me here my color is, and it's giving me the variable and everything that I want, which is very nice. And we can look at text, HSL, HSB, UI color, or very nice. Okay, I'm just going to stay in dev mode for a bit and show you a couple other things. So here we've got an element, and this is using auto layout. So if it expands or if it gets higher, rephrase that. The width of the height change, content is going to change within Figma itself. So Figma is now giving us the ability to scale things so we can actually see what's going to happen to a component when it's being size changes, or when we do a container query or something. And it's telling us here, when we hover over this, when we select it, well, what's the top and bottom padding, what's the left and right, what's the data between the icon and that. And if we then go into this section, we can also see, well, there's spacing that we need there, giving us all of that. Which is very nice, and you can see there a representation, sort of the box model that we kind of get in the DevTools browser. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go and just look at a different example, and that is that when we might be working with something like inputs. So if we're setting up our Figma UI libraries correctly, again, this is a designer's job. If I go and select a text input, you'll see I have a whole lot of variants attached to this that I can then go and work through. For example, I could say, okay, I want a label, but I want it on top. And I want an icon. Sorry, why am I looking there? Sorry. I want an icon on the left, and I want some help text. So if we're setting up our components in Figma correctly, we should be able to just spin through all of these, setting up our system. And when we go into dev mode for an element like this, and we select it, and we select a component, and we go to our playground, it should be showing us all the possibilities we've got for a particular component. So we can easily start to build these out. So you can say, okay, what does this look like when it's disabled? And then it's giving us that, and that is going to automatically update in our dev resources on the side the particular state that we are looking at. So that again is very, very helpful for how we're doing this. Now you may have noticed when I changed this and added a label and help text, our elements automatically expanded in height without losing any of the spacing between elements. And that's auto layout again that's doing that. So if we select this, we can see we've got 32 at the top, 32 at the bottom, on either side, and then spacing between each one, and we can actually just drag these, and the whole thing's going to flow with what we're doing within reason. So we're getting a whole load of these new things within Figma that we can use from both a UI designer's perspective to be able to make these reusable components. We've always been able to do that, but it's much easier now. And then for the developer to come in and go, okay, I understand what this should do. I'm not guessing, I'm not emailing someone or getting on Slack or whatever it is and asking, what happens when I click this? It's all here and it will be documented. So again, I'll just go back here. And you can see we've got our playground, and we've got all the component instances, and something else that we can also do is we can go and add dev resource. And again, this could be a link to a story like Jira. It could be which says build a text input with a label, an icon on the left, etc., and a help text, and allow it to have those various properties if we want them. Like it's going to say component in React. So you can link to all of those things. I'll just add one so you can see a random link to Google. Here we go. It's going to create that. There it is. And there it's just automatically going to open it from that component. And of course, you can edit, copy, and delete it. Okay, so dev resources can be added there. All right. Now, there are a bunch of plugins that we can use as well to improve our workflow. So, from a design perspective, when you come in here and you look at a design, you say, okay, that looks like that. And then a designer wants to document this. What we can do is we can use a plugin called age shapes specs. And I've just selected that element, that component, and I'm now going to click create specs, and bam, there we go. So that's now gone, taken that component and it's broken it up into all of those elements, and it's named everything, it's telling us with it, and it's putting in all our variables, states, everything that we've set up for that particular element. So if I go back and I change this to say label inside, that's going to change, that will update to label inside. So this is a really nice way for designers to document stuff, and then it's also going to go and create that box file layout based on our auto layout, which is great. Don't abuse it though, because sometimes it's tempting to do it for every single component, and then your Figma file becomes unmanageable. So I'm going to delete it. Right. Okay, now I'm going to go back into dev mode again, and here we have now a new plugins section that is just for development, for developers in dev mode. So you're not searching for plugins and finding things that are design related. This is all for developers. And one I just want to show you quickly is the component inspector. And I'm going to select my text input here, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm selecting component inspector, and I'm going to select React, and it's giving us some fairly usable code. I'm not saying highly usable. I'm saying fairly usable. It's definitely a start. But what it is doing is it's pulling in all our properties that we've set in Figma for our instances. Our default, our disabled, our error, that's all part of our Figma component. And if we're naming those nicely and correctly as a designer, doing quite a lot of work already, where you're not wasting your time, like trying to figure out, well, what are the props for this? Oh, they're right there. Show 15 lines more of code. That seems like a lot for a text input. Anyway, there it goes. So yeah, as I said, helpful. Probably don't put it in your PO. You can also change the languages that you want to use here. So you can do Angular, and it's going to update that. Angular methods, Vue, composition API, web components, panel, JSON, which can be useful if you want to. Yeah, that's another thing. I'm not going to talk. The Figma has an API. That's another talk. Yeah, so you can go and do all of those things. But what we can also do is we can click these three little icons here, and we can click Open in VS Code. Now, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to just switch to VS Code, and I'm going to show you in VS Code this plugin, Figma for VS Code. This was released by Figma on the day of Config when they were announcing all these new things. It's like any other VS Code plugin, install it, search, etc. And then there's a couple of settings that you can do. So you can say, you can set up a directory where your exported Figma assets should be saved. What is the public path or something? And then still in experimental code completion based on how you've structured your component. So when I install Figma, I get this little Figma icon here, and I can click on that. I was logged in earlier, of course. Sorry. Okay. All right. Easy enough. Okay, and here it's it's going to pull in all my recent Figma files that I've been working in. You see there, dev mode, example file. Log into Figma. I just did. Demos, it's putting in. Maybe it's an image. There we go. Okay, so there's the file that I've been showing you with those elements, and pages will get bundled up on top. You can see what's ready for dev and what isn't from VS Code itself. If I switch to inputs, you're going to see that, oh, I'm actually in the file. So it's very, very live, so to speak. And then here, in VS Code, I can go and start to look at these, and exactly the same kind of dev mode things that we have are now being pulled into VS Code. But it gets even more interesting. So if I select the form component itself, it's already starting to give me some code. So it's saying, okay, this is 401 pixels wide and 96 pixels high. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. That was just me creating something quickly. But it's also putting through all my color variables that are being used. Yeah? So my neutral, dark variations, my white with the hex value. But I'm saying, okay, no, I don't want hex. Give me HSL. This is better. It's going to give me the HSL straight away. We don't need to go back to Figma. What's the color? All here. It'll also tell us properties in terms of width and height. It'll tell us what is this component and what are the states, etc., etc., etc. Do we have any dev resources? Yes, we've got this Google link. And are there any assets? And oh yes, look, there's an icon SVG. Amazing. Let's just download that. Oh, let's put it straight in public images, icon mail.svg. Nice, fantastic. Public images, icon mail, SVG. I'm not going to Figma, selecting something, selecting export, select make it an SVG, select export it to this folder, etc., etc. I'm just doing it directly from VS Code, which makes such a massive difference to our workflow as developers when we're having to work with especially complex designs. Okay, you'll see here also, I can select the nodes. So if I'm going into my form, that's my top level component, and these are all the instances that live in that. And I can select those separately. So buttons, etc., etc. And now we're starting to get better CSS applied to these. On the one hand, Figma seems to have just replaced position absolute with display flex. Yeah. For everything. So again, use it sparingly, but it's still a lot better. Yeah. And you know, I would do inline flex, for example, on a button probably, because reasons, and probably wouldn't specify types or whatever. But there's other good stuff here. But then you have to wonder, well, what's this gap doing here? Why do we need a gap on a button? We don't. Yeah. So again, we need to just be a little wary. Don't copy and paste here's your React component, here's your CSS. Think about how it could work. But again, some nice things that are coming through, like the style. Let's create a background. Let's create a variable. Let's call it this, etc. So those are nice things that are coming through. Again, when we go to a text element, we start to get some good things like setting up our order with our custom properties, etc. Okay, Then I can also I'm just going to create a CSS file, and I'm going to do that. And now Figma is suggesting class names. Yeah. Yeah. I'm almost done. Figma is now suggesting class names for me based on my components that I have selected in that particular window. So this means designers need to be starting to think very carefully about how they name things, and developers need to be part of that conversation. Otherwise, you're going to get frame 34, yeah, and then inside that group 312, and that is not helpful. So there needs to be a lot more closer collaboration and talking about how we're naming things as a design and development. Okay, add button. There we go. That's Figma doing that. That's Figma is doing that for us, not anything else. I do have Copilot, but it wasn't. Okay. All right. So that's just a quick example of the VS Code plugin. All this stuff from developer mode and everything is still in beta. They're making changes all the time. New things have been being released all the time as well. I'll just leave you with two other things that I didn't get to prototyping. Maybe we'll do another one. Two other things that you can do in Figma. If you're a designer and developer and you need to collaborate, you can call each other. I don't recommend it. But you can. You can start an audio call within Figma. So if there's someone else in the file with you, because you can see who's in the file. I'm in the file twice now because I'm in it in Figma and in VS Code. So you can actually call someone and say, hey, what's this? What's happening here? Don't do that. But you can do this. You can just go press the / and go, hey, and have a conversation, / in your Figma file if you're uncertain of something. Yeah. And of course, there's a good old comment that will never be resolved. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. A massive upgrade to Figma, and it's really going to make the way we work collaboratively as designers, front-end developers, very different. We're still, I think, figuring out exactly what how to use it optimally. It'll be a bit of a journey. Cool, thanks.
Okay, we have time for, while we know on time because we're sort of quite late and security will come and shoot us if we don't leave. So one lucky, most burning question, only if it's just really aching you deep. And you were, okay, Trevor.
Why did you say box model sort of?
They're not quite getting it right. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have plugins with any other ideas?
No, not at the moment. But they've opened up the plugin API, so people are developing all the time. JetBrains will definitely get one. And yeah, there's, JetBrains will do.
Yeah, I agree.